Latinas are trained to seek out providers.
Yeah.
Right? To seek out providers, to seek out the man who's going to provide, and how that may hinder their development professionally, financially, etc.
Yeah.
So how does that come into play with us staying comfortable, right? And hindering our progress if we are trained with these dynamics of what a family structure should look like.
Yeah.
You as a Latina, where you should be in your life when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, kids, hubby, all the things.
Yeah.
So how should we be addressing this if this is so prevalent in the cultura?
I think there's two ways of doing that. The first one is make sure that you are in alignment. And one of the things that I teach my clients to do is to understand their shape, right? And your shape, my shape is round, okay? I'm blessed in that way. But when it comes to your shape, what are your strengths, your heart, your abilities, your personality, and your expertise? Because once you've been able to assess those things, you'll be able to assess, is the role that I'm in actually in alignment with my shape? Or is it depleting me from pursuing more? And then the other thing is paying attention to the community in which you're in. Because if you're not careful, you'll have folks who mean well tell you those same kinds of, like, reinforce that narrative. Oh, you have to wait until, you have the right man, or be careful que you're not making too much and you make him feel some kind of way. He could care less. And that's one of the things that I learned with my husband. There was one point where I was earning more than my husband, but I was so aware of that was not a negotiation part of our relationship. It was just like, okay, this is what we make and this is how we help our family grow, instead of, well, I make more than you, so you can't tell me what to do.
Espérate, is your hubby Spanish?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he must be an exception to the rule, because we know machismo exists.
Very much, yeah.
And not too many fellas can handle their woman making more, and women find themselves shrinking.
Yeah.
Just to appease the ego of their partner.
Yeah, and I think my husband, for him, he's always seen this big personality. He and I met in college.
Okay.
And even one of the things that he will tell you is that even though I didn't speak all that much in college, I still had presence. And so, ladies, sometimes it's not just about what you're saying. It's about the way that you carry yourself. And so my husband knew very early on, she may not be saying much, but this is not one that I could play with. And that was just an internal thing that I perpetuated. Right. So when I got to a point of 6 figures, money doesn't change people. It helps to bring out who they really are. So if you're generally, I can't even talk. Genuinely.
Yes.
That's that Spanish accent I was telling you about. Generous, then that's what's going to come out. But if you're genuinely stingy, then that's also what's going to come out, because you're always hoarded, And so when we had this conversation surrounding finances, surrounding what money was like I told him from the beginning, there's going to be moments where I'm making more than you, and you need to be all right with that. Mm-hmm. And there's some guys who would not handle that conversation well. You know what I mean? But I went into this relationship saying those kinds of things.
What about your mindset, though? Yeah. For you to be okay as a Latina, to be making more than your man?
To me, it was an accomplishment. And it also was just like a reminder that I could figure things out. Right? And if used correctly, then I could set myself up for generations that come after me, right? So my mindset was never like, I'm going to hold it against you. But I also have gotten to a point where it's like, I love you. And should life happen and things go separate ways, we are going to be okay. Because now it's not just about him and I have a son. Right? That I have to be mindful about. And I don't think that there's enough conversation like that happens amongst couples for 2 reasons. One, we're not necessarily told to have those conversations, right? And 2, they can be approached very aggressively or with a negative connotation. And I've just gotten to a point where it's like, okay, well, we need to talk about it.
Right.
Because we can't afford surprises later on. We have a whole little life that's depending on us. So, yeah.
So do you think Latinas are trained to be provided for versus be the provider?
I think a lot of that depends on what your background looks like. On novelas, she's always provided for, right? And it's the bad girl that's always kind of going for her own. I was born and raised in the Bronx. And in the Bronx, you had to figure out how to stay alive.
Right.
And like how you were going to, like, there was always a hustle to you. So I think that there is something innately within us that was kind of Bronxified, if you will.
Yeah.
So I also think that I got to a point, and I don't know where I picked it up, but I didn't want to have to rely on someone else, not from a financial standpoint. I wanted to make sure that I could stand assured in who I am because, again, money changes people. So if I come to you broke, are you going to be okay with that? And if I come to you with a lot, are you going to be okay with that? And so I need to make sure that I have enough of confidence that I can figure things out, and enough that if it doesn't pan out the first way, it didn't take me out the first time. So I will be able to stand on my feet, much like this book deal. Like, this was not anything it wasn't on my vision board. It was just something that kind of flew into my head, and people had been telling me about that. But now with that, I'm just like, okay, we need to make sure that we have certain things in place. We have certain parameters in place because this is going to blow up. I'm calling it out now, right? Manifesting. This is going to blow up, and I want to make sure that we're comfortable and that we're good. And you need to be okay with that. And I think I've gotten to a point too where it's not my responsibility to manage your emotions.
Yeah.
And I think that was a lot of unlearning.
Definitely, because you had brought up this human giver syndrome. So I truly believe women innately have this syndrome.
Yeah.
But in certain cultures, I find that it is ingrained just a little bit more, right? For Latinas, as an example. Like, we are raised to be caterers, to be givers, to be the nurturers, to take care of everything. You know what I mean? How does that come into play when we're talking about professional accolades?